Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Hey, don't forget my pimento cheese. Of course.
It's okay, I'll take it from here.
Hey, get the guy to a seat!
For the love of palmetto cheese.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. Hey, spring is in the air, hence the summer jacket. So I'm ready. This is going to be a fun show today, and we're going to start off with some Pelicans talk. But how about this team? They were left for dead just a couple weeks ago. Well, they've returned and got 5 in a row. Last night, they blew out the Portland Trailblazers wearing those PDX jerseys. The Portland Trailblazers didn't even start 4 of their guys. See, this was a foregone conclusion, but they won that for their 5th in a row. They're now over 500 for the first time since the All-Star break. How about that? And they've moved up from the 12th spot when we had this show last week. There you go. That's the 5-game win streak. Look what they're doing. They couldn't score at all. They got 121 points a game these last 5, shooting 45% from 3 and 52% from the floor. And look at the assists. If you get 30 assists in a game, you're rolling. They're averaging over 30 for the last 5 games and only 14 turnovers. Congratulations to them. They are now 2 games out of home court advantage. They're now sitting in the 8th spot, just a half game out from the 6th and 7th spot. That's Golden State and Minnesota, and they play Golden State tonight in a big one. That's going to be tough. Golden State has been average this year, but phenomenal at home, horrible on the road. That'll be a big one. They also have games against each of these opponents. When I say they're only 2 games out of having home court advantage with 7 games to go, they're still only a game and a half away from being out of the playoffs completely. That's how crazy it is, from 4 to 11 in the NBA Western Conference. Moving forward, though, last night, how about that? Your boy in Clippers just a couple nights ago, Brandon Ingram. He had his first triple-double ever. He was on fire. This is the Brandon Ingram we saw at the end of the season last year. And hopefully, I'll talk to Rod Walker from The Advocate and Time Speak. I'm going to talk to him a little bit about what's going on with the team as a whole. Hey, Zion coming back. What's going on there? But I saw something touching with Zion last night in an interview with Teresa Witherspoon that Jen Hale did. It was phenomenal. We're going to touch on that as well and see what's going on there. How about the LSU women? You know where we're going to stop there. The LSU women are rolling. That's right. They are now 32-2, and they beat Utah on Friday. That was a big game because that was the second seeded Utah. You know, LSU was the 3rd seed, and that was the only really close game they've had in the tournament. After 2 blowouts in the first 2 rounds, they won in a late fashion in that game right there. And then on Sunday, one of the uglier games you'll ever see. Defense was a specialty. Only 1 3-pointer was made the entire game by either team, and that was late. But they got the W. Congratulations to Kim Mulkey. We got to talk about her jackets, because this is, every time I talk to somebody about LSU women, they go, how about those jackets? And these are people calling me from around the country saying they love Kim Mulkey and her fashion and the way she's got these LSU Tigers from just a 9-win season 2 years ago, and now she's 58-8 in these 2 years. And there's the girl right there, Angel Reese, holding that trophy. She just broke a record for LSU in double-doubles with 32 on the season out of 34 games. That's pretty remarkable. And moving forward, how about the NCAA men's? This is as wacky as it gets. You remember 2006? That's right. The last time LSU went, Well, that's when they had an 11 seed. George Mason, they had LSU was a 4, you had a 3 and a 2. No number 1. So this year you don't have a 1, 2, or 3. How about that? And one of the teams, the other time that the guy was in that Final Four is Jim Larinaga with that George Mason team. Now he brought Miami in for the first time, along with 2 other teams that have never been to the Final Four. Of course, Florida Atlantic, you know they've never been, but that team is good, and they are experienced. I love that team. They're a 9 seed. They're going to have to play a UConn team that looks like they're going to whip everybody. But you know what? That's what this tournament is. Every time you think somebody's going to whip everybody, they get whipped themselves. So it's San Diego State playing Florida Atlantic. Excuse me on that mishap. And Miami is going to play UConn. So that is your Final Four, and that's as crazy as it gets. Hey, moving forward, LSU baseball, they are rocking. And I'm going to tell you this. They are so much fun to watch play. They did lose in 10 innings to Arkansas on Friday, but how about the doubleheader on Saturday? My goodness, 26 runs in 2 games, 14 in the nightcap, 12 in the opener. They had 7 home runs on Saturday alone. These guys can hit the ball, and they are fun. There's Tommy Tanks White. Man, he has been a great addition from NC State last year, where he led all freshmen in history of NCAA baseball with home runs last year. And he's picking right up where he left off. But it's Dylan Cruz, man. He'll be the first pick of the NCAA draft, unless there's some crazy thing happen. This guy's hitting over 500. He had 3 homers on Saturday alone. He is killing the ball, and he looks like he's seeing the softball up there every time he hits. And moving forward, the LSU Gymnastics, I got to give them some love because they're going to be coming on the show right when this championship ends. I'm bringing the coach and a few of the gymnasts, and I cannot wait for that. But we all know who Liv Dunn is. Livy Dunn's all over social media. She's in sensation, making millions. Some love her, some are jealous of her, but the fact is she's good, and so are her teammates. How about Haley Bryant, who had 3 10s 2 weekends ago? Phenomenal, and she's great. Sierra Ballard is amazing as well, and don't forget Bridget Dean and the rest of this squad. Congratulations, they're the 6th ranked team in the country, and they're going to be doing their thing all weekend long. So hopefully we'll see them next week or the week after right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, by the way, we had a Louisiana Derby. We had the guy that does all the broadcasting there. He does all the handicapping. Well, he was right. Kings Barnes was the horse that he said was one of the favorites, and they went wire to wire on that one. The big favorite, Instant Coffee, did not do anything in this race, but Kings Barnes certainly did, and they win the Kentucky Derby, and go to the Louisiana Derby to go to the Kentucky Derby, and he will be one of the favorites. And prayers go out to Foster Morrow. I remember calling his games back at Jesuit, and this one catch, that catch right there, I called that game. That was one of the more remarkable catches I've seen on the high school level. But Foster Morrow was an overachiever, the last guy to go to LSU on a scholarship because somebody else decided to go to another school. So he got that last scholarship. And then he had a successful NFL career with the Raiders. He was looking at the Saints in free agency, but he's got something I had several years ago, Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I know he'll get through it, and hopefully he'll be able to resume his career. But right now, it's prayers for his health. That's the most important thing. Also, prayers go out to Nashville. One of my brother and sister's good friends passed away in that tragedy over there, and also for the Baton Rouge officers who were killed in the helicopter. We have a great show for you. I cannot wait for this. I really can't. Lionel Washington, one of my favorite human beings on earth, 15-year NFL veteran, star at Tulane. He beat LSU 3 out of 4 years in that stretch from 79 to 82. He made his name with the Los Angeles Raiders, but he's going to be here right here. He's a former Tulane guy, as is a guy that pitched for the Yankees. Kevin Mmahat didn't have a long career, but man, he was a great pitcher at Tulane as well in the 80s. He's going to be here to talk about that. His son actually is a quarterback at Tulane, so we'll probably get into that magical season that he was following the Green Wave as well. And also my man Rob Walker. I cannot wait. Haven't had him on since we came back, but I'm fired up about this because we're going to talk about all those things we touched about, particularly the Pelicans and LSU women and whatever else we have time for. We'll be right back on Primetime Sports.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. We got a great show for you today. We're going to do some couple Tulane guys that did some things post-Tulane. I love it. Later in the show, we're going to have Kevin Mmahat, who played baseball, great pitcher, had a cup of coffee with the Yankees. How many people can say that? And also, Rod Walker is going to come and talk about the Pelicans, LSU women's basketball, the NCAA tournament. He's with the Times-Picayune and Advocate. And also, right now, a guy that I met in 2008 in the craziest circumstance. We'll bring that up later, but that's 15 years ago. And I know he's been a gentleman and a great football player. started here at Lutcher. That's what we like to do. Celebrate our homegrown players from the state of Louisiana, or if they came here and did great things. Well, this guy has done both. He played at Tulane. He's from Lutcher. Graduated in 79. He is one of the class of 79 is the Tulane class that beat LSU 3 out of 4 years. How about that? Went on to a 15-year NFL career, 2/3 of that with the Raiders, but he started with the Cardinals and then also played a little bit with the Denver Broncos and coached with the Packers and other teams as well. He's right here. Lionel Washington, one of the true Tulane Green Wave heroes. Nice to see you again, man.
Nice seeing you also, Scotty.
I went to the Tulane function last Friday. I felt honored to be invited to that. And I saw a lot of players I knew from growing up, like the Wenzels and Arata and people like that, but also a lot of them that have been on the show, like the Brock Honnesses and Terrence Jones. But it was a great event, and it was great to run into you again.
It was good. It was good seeing a lot of the guys last week, Scotty. It was good seeing you also. It's been, like you said, 15 years since I've seen you last, and it's a great opportunity. Coach Fritz have done an excellent job at Tulane University, the football team, and it was a great honor for me to go there and see a lot of the players and ex-teammates that I hadn't seen in years and years.
Yeah, it was a great fundraising event. They had about 100 or so of the former players of all eras, and obviously this is the time to capitalize because they had such a great season, and he stayed at Tulane. He wanted to continue this thing, and he kept the quarterback, and he kept some of the players, and now he's going into the portal. And I know it's become big, but I've always wondered this as a Tulane grad, and I know there's pride watching your school. Heck, I worked with James Worthy in the NCAA tournament when they lost to Weber State. I remember he was throwing stuff at the TV, and he's calling Michael Jordan saying, "Can you believe that? We got to get Guthrie out of here. Let's get Doherty." So I know there's pride, even no matter how old you get. And the fact is, when you watch this magical run this season, coming off the 2-10 to have the biggest turnaround in college football history, what's it like from you, sitting back from afar? And not as far back as you used to be, but because you're now back in the state of Louisiana. But what was it like as a grad that played there, and when you watched this kind of thing?
Pride.
Yes.
I felt filled with pride. I had an opportunity to go to the game in Dallas, the Cotton Bowl, so I got a chance to see them play live and watch the guys play. They play hard. Coach Fritz have done a tremendous job with his football team, and the guys believing in what they're doing, they're trusting in everything that they are doing. So that's a great honor for me to go back and see that happen.
I'm glad you said that because I didn't know we were going to go there. But that game against USC, I mean, that's as big a brand name as there is. They were in the running, their previous game when they got beat, they were in the running to go to the national championship, the 4 teams that were going to be in the playoff. They came in, but Tulane was just a slight underdog because people knew that Tulane could score just as easily as they could. But the pride you got watching that and then seeing the magic, I don't know if you were a Tulane fan when you were a kid, but I remember being 8 years old when Tulane beat LSU 14-0. I was on my brother's shoulders. I remember how crazy it was. But to see that kind of magic again, as a guy that played, what was the Cotton Bowl like?
It was just one of those situations where it's when the game first started, you see SC and Tulane. It just doesn't seem right.
Right, sure.
And I got an opportunity to call Marcus Allen. And I said, Marcus,
that's right, your teammate with the Raiders, yes.
Teammate with the Raiders, and I give him a quick call, say, maybe we're going to kick you guys' butt today. And he said, sure. 60 minutes later, I give him a call back, and I said, it happens. So it's just.
It was so much fun,
just
right?
to rib him a little bit, to give him just a little, that wave.
Y'all around the same age, right?
Yes, we are. Marcus is a year older.
Year older, right?
Year older, yes.
Yeah, I remember he won a Super Bowl early. Were you on that team, or was that year before you got to the Raiders?
That was my rookie year. I think it was '83.
We were the
last team to beat him that year during that season.
Okay.
The last game of the regular season, and I was the St. Louis Cardinals, and we beat the Raiders before they won the Super Bowl that year.
That's right. Let's go there. You started your career with the Cardinals. Well, let me go back to Tulane because you came to Tulane in 1979. You were a celebrated defensive back. Tulane had won that game in '73, right? But other than that, it had been 30 years. It's the only game they won against LSU. But somehow, miraculously, I know Reggie Reginelli, the running back right here from Newman, was in your class. And I know I always said this, that Reggie had beaten them 3 out of 4 because he's in some of the same circles I did growing up. But you, in that class, how much pride did y'all take in taking the Tigers down, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and a couple of them weren't even close?
You know what? We did take great pride in going down and playing LSU, first of all, and having an opportunity to beat them. That made it even better. But it's even sweeter now because years have passed, and a lot of the guys that I played against and beat those 3 out of 4 years, I got a chance to see those guys and see them on a regular basis. I got a chance to play with a couple of guys also in the NFL. So
Do you remember which ones? I'm curious.
it was Ramsey Dardo, Malcolm Scott. That's the name of two. Leonard Marshall. We all came out.
Leonard Marshall, my
That's
goodness.
right.
You're talking about some great players right there.
Excellent football players, and we got a chance to beat those guys and the caliber of players they had down there. So, when we did those throughout the 4 years, there's something very tremendous.
Oh, well, I remember I was a senior in high school in the '82 season when they had just beaten Florida State to go to the Orange Bowl, but they still had Tulane out there, right? Didn't y'all take them down after that? Before they would, I think you did. I know you beat them late after they'd already got a big bowl bid.
It was the Orange Bowl, and before the game started, they were throwing oranges at us on the field. So it was, that give us a little more incentive to go out and kick their butts even more.
You did, and so did Nebraska down there. So congratulations on that. So when you went to the NFL draft, what were your expectations? Did you have many? I mean, did you always think you were going to be an NFL player? What was that like? Going through high school and then now college, as far as your expectations in the NFL? Because you played 15 years, and that's very rare.
My expectation coming out of high school was to go to college, get a degree, and come back home and coach. That was my expectation because I always wanted to be a high school football coach.
Wow, you knew that early on.
Or either basketball, yes. I knew what I wanted to do.
You ran track.
Ran track, but I didn't want to coach track. I wanted to do
We got a good picture of you right here in a little relay.
Marcus Anderson, yes.
Marcus Anderson, good call.
Wide receiver. The thing about that is I never put expectation on myself like that because I just, at that moment, I didn't see myself becoming an NFL football player. My goal was, like I said, to finish college and get that degree and go back home and coach. But I think it was around my junior year, Rodney Holman had left already.
He's on this helmet.
I was going into my senior year. And he told me a lot of the scouts started to talk about me and ask about me. And that's when I realized then I may have an opportunity.
When'd you get drafted? Do you remember?
I was fourth round.
Fourth round.
Fourth round, yes.
Nice. I'm going to say this. Your Cardinal career obviously vaulted you into the Raiders, and they had a mystique about them. And I know they had been in Oakland when I was a kid. I remember they moved to Los Angeles when I believe was either in my high school or the beginning of my college, and they were there for a long time. But you got to play, and that's where you made your name. You had 8 seasons there at that point, and then you went back after going to the Broncos and had another season. I believe they'd moved to Oakland by this point.
Moved to Oakland, yes.
But when you go to play, nothing against the Cardinals, but I mean, listen, in the 70s, when you and I were growing up, the Raiders were one of those teams, right? I mean, they had that mystique about them. A lot of it was because they were dirty, but they just had talent out of their, they were great. You had Al Davis, the Maverick. So what was it like when you decided, or how did that work? Were you a free agent or was this a trade?
Free agent just has started to come into effect at that time. But first of all, I like to say the Cardinals give me my opportunity.
Right.
So that's one of the teams I'm always going to be real grateful and thankful for because
that's nice, absolutely.
They drafted me.
They were St. Louis Center.
They were St. Louis Cardinals at that time. Yes.
Right. And then when they moved to Arizona, like right after you left?
I think it was like 87, 88.
Right. Yeah, you
I'm
just
not sure
left,
which year. And I got traded because that's I
St. Louis is a great sports town, by the way.
A great sports town.
It is.
I love St. Louis. I think I would still be there if I wouldn't have gotten traded. I think I'd have made my home there. But things happen for a reason. I played well my first 4 years there. I was leading the team, led the league, finished the league my first year, second in interception.
Nice,
so
nice.
That part of it, I started to make a name for myself in St. Louis. And when I got to the Raiders, I was like, man, why did they trade it for me? Because they had Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes.
Yeah.
So there's no way I'm going to break into that lineup.
Mike Haynes has got the famous shot, Monday Night Football, old people like us, when he's running in slow motion, right at the camera. Those old Monday night when they open up the shows. And Lester Hayes, I mean, goodness, that was a legend, but he was getting towards the back end of his career.
Well, they both were at the time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking with older guys, and I guess as I continue to play, a lot of younger guys coming in and saying, well, it's time for this guy to get out of here.
Right.
But just watching Lester and watching Mike on TV, that was a great honor. So I learned a lot from both of those guys for how you play the game, how you prepare for the game. So, and so unfortunate, Lester got hurt during preseason, and I was able to step in and that was
Did you stay quarterback your whole career? Like I know Steve Foley moved to safety, and I know I was in D.C. when Darryl Green played 20 years at cornerback, which is unbelievable.
Yes,
but
it is.
Even played defensive back for 15 years because that's a speed position. Were you quarterback all 15, or did you go to safety? That's remarkable. That's remarkable.
It's not a lot of guys that I can say that maybe 3 to 4 guys, maybe. Darryl Green, of course, he played 20 all at corner.
Right, right.
And myself played all 15 at corner. So it's
because you're on an island, man. We all know that's
yourself.
the toughest position in sports.
And during that time, that's all we played. We played man to man. We played cat coverage. We just like to call it cat coverage. You got that cat, I got that cat. And let's play football.
I've never heard that. I can't. Let's say this. That's the one position that when you get beat, the entire world knows. Because it's just you and him on TV, and they're just flying by, and everybody knows. Other times when all the people in the they don't know who messed up, but that's the one. So when you're in your 14th, 15th year, and they got these young cats coming up, you know, the Randy Mosses of the world, you're like, I mean, that's got to be daunting.
And, you know, in my 15th season, I can remember one game he was playing, and I said, man, he was playing.
You breathing heavy now thinking about it.
Yes, thinking about it, man.
He's like,
he was playing Seattle.
Okay.
And at the time, I can't think of the receiver name at the time, but he was very fast receiver.
Yeah, mid-90s at this point, right? Yeah.
Yes, and so he ran by me the first time. He didn't throw the football.
I know it wasn't Steve Largent because he wasn't fast, but he had great hands.
But I hated Steve Largent, man. Steve Largent was my nightmare.
He was a technician.
Yes, he was
one
very
of the
much
best
so.
route runners ever.
Because I remember my first year coming in there, I said, no, I'm not going to let this old guy beat me. And you know,
they said that about Fred Blitnikoff too.
Exactly, and he just couldn't run, but find a way of getting open, running great routes, catching the football, and tough as nails. A very tough football player and a very, very, very competitive football player. So anytime you get a guy with that type of combination of having a great understanding of what he's doing, how he's going to do it, and just have a great feel for the football game, he was one of those guys. That's why he's a Hall of Famer. You
know, we touched on this, how we met 15 years ago, but we haven't said the story, and I'll make it brief, but it's kind of unique because I was an NBA agent for 10 years, and I was recruiting a couple players. I had just gotten the big Wisconsin Center, and I was looking at a Tulane guy who ended up getting, and then I kept seeing Deron Washington, and I'm like, this kid can play, man. He's Virginia Tech. I mean, he had athletic skills. He was smooth with the ball, and he was a nice size, you know. I'm like, who's got him? And so I remember talking to him after like 3 different games, and I'm like, and I started a relationship, which is usually very late in the process.
Yes.
Usually I've been working these guys for 3 or 4 or 5 years, but I just hit it off with him, and we liked each other, and we didn't know each other well. We just met really, but he said I can't do anything or even really. Don't give me a presentation because my dad's got to be here. And I'm like, who's your dad? And he said, Lionel Washington. I said, Tulane? I said, I grew up watching him. And then you flew in from Wisconsin, and it was the craziest thing because it's 1 in the morning. When I think you flew in at like midnight.
Yes.
And it's in Portsmouth, Virginia, where it's kind of the Senior Bowl basically for basketball. All the seniors get noticed. You know, some are already ready for the NBA. Some are hoping to get noticed. But your son was obviously going to be a professional one way or the other, whether it be NBA or he was going to make money. And I remember it was so unique because I've never done a presentation in a hotel room like that. It wasn't planned, but that's how we met, and we saw each other 15 years later this past Friday.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. The minute you said your name, I know exactly who you were. And you told me about how we met, and it's like, yes, that was one of those situations because you never know where you're going to end up in this world and in life. And I think you have done a tremendous job, and seeing what you're doing now, you're also doing a tremendous job also.
Well,
so
thank you.
You continue to do well for yourself.
Well, how about you were coaching? Thank you very much. You were coaching the Packers at that time, and I got to say this because you had a guy who I love watching. I mean, he got the Heisman Trophy. There you with the Packers. We got the Heisman Trophy. There's your mugshot with the Packers.
Hair, man.
Yeah. But you had hair, exactly. That's why I was going to mention that, the Tulane shot, because it was even higher. But Charles Woodson, he won the Heisman over Peyton Manning, but then he got to the NFL and he proved why he was the best at his position. What was it like with this defense? And you had Harris as well. That was a tandem back there. But what was it like coaching this mystique of a team and having these guys on your defense?
Just watching those pictures of Charles right there.
He's unbelievable, wasn't he?
I did the smartest thing I can possibly do when I coached those 2 guys, L. Harris and Charles Woodson.
Yeah, they are together right there.
I stayed out their way.
Yeah.
I give them certain things. I asked them what they need to work on. And once they tell me, I went back and studied them as football players and studied the technical side of their game because they were smart football players already, so they knew and understood the game itself. So I was going to make sure technically they were sound. And once I figured that out and understood that, everything else took care of itself. And all I wanted to do is make sure I didn't interrupt them from continuing to get better. And you're coaching guys like that, you let them do their thing and stay within the scheme work of what you're doing defensively and let them play football.
That's the best thing. If you got a guy that good, don't mess it up, right?
Don't mess it up.
But I know they respected you because they probably never had another coach that played corner for 15 years. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got instant respect. I mean, you're a silent leader. You just your presence kind of commands respect. And
that's the thing I admired about those guys. They did respect what I had to say to them, and they took it to heart. Now, Al Harris is coaching for the Dallas Cowboys right now.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, so first thing he asked, man, what I'm going to do after I finish playing, I'm sorry. I said, get into coaching because football is something you've done all your life.
Yeah.
And now he's coaching.
And doesn't that make you proud?
It does.
It does, right?
It does.
Well, there's been a lot of great players, including some of your teammates on this helmet, and I'm just honored to have you on it in a second as well.
A couple guys that coach also.
Some of these right here too?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. By the way, you coached 7 years at Tulane or so, about that?
Yeah.
So what was that like coming to your alma mater as you signed the ball? Signed the helmet, sorry.
That was one of the better
Make it big. I want to be able to read Lionel
feelings
later,
you can possibly get, because going back home to coach where
Maybe right in there.
Where it started.
Start over here and make it big right there, Lionel.
Where it started for you at, and anytime you get that opportunity to go back home and do something that you love doing and work with young men, that's a great feeling.
And you coached Southern in your career. I know there's a lot of pride up there on the on the Bluffs, right? They call it the Bluffs?
It was on the Bluff. I got an opportunity to go there. Southern recruited me out of high school also,
right.
So I got a chance to go back there and coached there for 4 seasons and had a great time doing it.
So you're back home, and that means you can eat out. You don't have to come back for Christmas and go eat. There's a gift certificate from Shays Delachey's.
Oh, thank you.
That's on Maple Street uptown. There's also one, a Delachey's on St. Charles Avenue over by Louisiana you can go to. But this is, do you wear Task shirts?
I will now.
What do you feel this up? I used to wear Under Armour 10 years ago when I moved back. Task is the softest shirt you'll ever put on. It's all natural fibers. It's bamboo, cotton. I mean, it's amazing. But Lionel, it's been a treat.
Thank you, Scotty.
It was so good running into you last week. And how about your alma mater, the Green Wave, and congratulations to your career and everything that you've done for football in general.
Thank you, and Roll Wave.
Roll Wave, how about it? Yeah, last week I kind of had a focus on Loyola. I've done a lot of LSU shows, of course, Saints, Pelicans, but I've done a lot of Green Wave. That's because they've earned it. This season, this year, I had so many of their players, and it's been a joy. I love all the teams down here. Hey, give me some love over at Nichols. I was Southeastern. If you're doing well, I'm gonna give you love, and I always do. But Tulane is a big part of the fabric of the city of New Orleans. I want to thank him. And I'm not done with my Tulane people. That's right. I graduated '83, and I went to college up to '87, and so did my next guest. After we're going to talk some Pelicans and LSU women's basketball, Rod Walker. My guest after that, but he has a presence about him. His son actually plays on this Tulane team. His name is Garrett Mmahat, but his dad pitched for the Yankees some, and he was a pitcher for Tulane Green Wave, and he had a great minor league career as well. He's a New Orleanian, did great things in his sport, and his name is Kevin Mmahat. He's coming up towards the end of the show, but we'll see you next right here, right after Rod Walker on Primetime Sports.
Max Durbus Realtors has been providing commercial and industrial real estate services to its clients for nearly 100 years. Since 1934, Max Durbus has been locally owned and operated throughout the greater New Orleans area, including the North Shore, Hammond, and even the Mississippi Gulf Coast and beyond. We focus on your commercial real estate needs so you don't have to. More information is available at 504-733-4555.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lanes, the home of rock and roll.
The recent devastation from hurricanes have caused insurance companies to significantly raise their rates. However, most of them are offering large discounts if you install a fortified roof system, which uses larger nails and has a much stronger, resilient base underneath the shingles. The fortified roof professionals at Skyline Contractors can install these new roofing systems for you. More information is available at 504-355-6845 or at skylinecontractors.us.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, what a great interview with Lionel Washington. What a great career he had. And I'm still amazed because I was an LSU and Tulane fan all through the 70s and 80s. Still am. I'm one of the guys that back then you couldn't be one of the, you had to be one or the other. Now, you know, I love them both and I want to see all our teams do well. And congratulations to the great career of Lionel Washington. But we're going to move forward. We're going to have another Tulane athlete coming up later in the show, Kevin Mmahat, who pitched for Tulane in the mid-80s and also for the New York Yankees. He pitched in Fenway Park and Yankee Stadium. Not a lot of New Orleanians can say that. But right now, we're going to talk to a guy that I think came to New Orleans around the same time I moved back. I came back in 2012. I know I started seeing Rod at training camps, and you know, obviously you got the ones that were here in New Orleans and they're back here, but for 3 years we go to West Virginia, and that's when you get to know people because you're there with them pretty much 24/7. So I got to know him. What a great guy. One of the best guys I know in the media here, and he loves his job and he does it so well. And here he is once again. He hasn't been back since before COVID when we came back this past May, but he came several times back when we first started the show. But welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me on.
Look how dapper you're looking. Looking sharp, baby.
Trying to keep up.
Oh, there we go. You don't have anything this ugly in your closet, I guarantee you that. Moving forward, let's talk about this great basketball that's going on right now. Because I know you cover the Pelicans as you do the Saints and a lot of other sports, but this Pelicans team has been a bit of an enigma, correct? I mean, you know, they started off okay, good, and then they got really good when Zion came back, and they looked like they were the one seed for a while. And then, you know, for reasons, you know, you haven't had some of your best players, but they went down and people were counting them out. I watched all the ESPN stuff during the day, and they were like making their picks about 2 weeks ago on who's going to be in, and only one of them picked the Pelicans. I think that's because she had to give an argument. But the fact is they've won 5 in a row. So can you explain this 2022-23 season to a person that might have just come in from Mars?
I think it's just been a season of peaks and valleys, and they went through a really big valley here, you know, back, you know, January, February. They lost that game to the Houston Rockets, you know, on St. Patrick's Day, and I think a lot of people sort of written them off.
Which is only 11 days ago, right?
I know, right?
I mean, think about it.
And Jabari Smith hits that, you know, three-pointer at the buzzer to win it, and things were looking really bleak. And then all of a sudden, it's like the light just came on for this entire team. You look at what Brandon Ingram's been doing over this past few weeks. I mean, he's just been on a tear. He won Western Conference Player of the Week.
Yes, he did.
You know, he's won it like once every year he's been here.
Right.
He won it for just what he's done. I mean, he's literally like just put this team on his back and just said, okay, let's do this. And you know, here they are. They're right back in the mix of this play-in tournament or the playoffs.
You, as well as anybody, remember the magic of last season. And once again, Zion wasn't there, but when Zion was here, he was carrying the team on his back as well. But all the complementary pieces played so well. You weren't seeing a lot of that for a while. I mean, like, you know, Herb Jones, who had a great defensive effort last night, and I love what he said to Jen Hale in the post-game interview. Hey, I don't care if I score as long as we win. I just want to contribute, and he did in a big way. But guys like Trey Murphy and all these guys are now starting to play great. I thought Murphy's been one of these guys that's played great all year, but some of the other guys have been up and down a little more. So what do you think that they can bottle this magic up kind of like they did last year? Because like I said in the open, they're 2 games away from having home court advantage. Now that's going to be tough with only 7 to go, but they're also just a game and a half from being completely out of the play-in tournament. So what do you think about, because they look like the team a little bit that was at the end of the season when they caught our attention so greatly?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I know Willie Green's talked about this a lot, is they've made a concentrated effort to get the ball to Jonas Valanciunas early in the game, just kind of get him going. And that just opens everything up for this team. And you see that. I mean, you see Trey Murphy just getting these wide open
He's unbelievable,
looks, and he just knocks these shots down. I mean, he's like having Klay Thompson out there.
And he's taking it to the rim, too. That's the difference. And playing defense. I mean, last year he was drafted to be a spot-up shooter, which he did last night. Was it 10 threes or 2 nights ago? Whenever he got the 10 threes. But he's playing with authority.
He is. I mean, he's a guy that, you know, he's a three-point contest and a slam dunk contest, which says a lot about him. But you can just see his confidence starting to grow. I mean, it's his 2nd season in the league. And so, I mean, his development has really just made this team a lot better as well. So I think the pieces are just finally coming together. And, you know, they have that thing about peaking at the right time. And I think that's what this team is doing right now. Obviously, they still have a ways to go. I mean, it's, like you mentioned, it's jumbled up, and they could climb as high.
Dallas is the best example, right? Because Dallas, everybody was talking them up. They could be a 4 seed if they play. Well, they've now lost 5 or so in a row, at least 4. I know they've lost. They're in a streak, and they got Kyrie Irving. Everybody thought that's how fickle it is in sports, and particularly the NBA, where everybody's writing the Pelicans off. Now they're talking, hey, they might have home court advantage.
Yeah, I mean, everybody had written the Pelicans off, I think, again, after that Houston game. So it just goes to show that the season is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you just have to just let this thing play out.
Normally, I would not watch a West Coast post game show, but I was staying up real late working on this show. So I was watching Jen Hale's interview with Teresa Weatherspoon, one of the great women's players of all time. And I got to know her a bit in Atlanta. You know, she spent a lot of time there, and I believe she even grew up there. My point is, she talked about her relationship with Zion Williamson, which I know you're familiar with. And it's one of the people Zion trusts as much of his family, and it's a beautiful thing. There's Teresa right there. But the things that she said that were so poignant to me, I replayed it like 3 times. And since you're around, I used to go to every game, but I don't go much anymore. I'm watching from afar. Talk to me about that relationship and what it means. And she, you know, now we know that Zion, you know, they say at least 2 more weeks. I don't think it's shocking anybody. But talk about that relationship and the possibility, what they could be if he does indeed come back for the playoffs.
I think if, you know, I mean, we saw what he could do back in December when his team was on top of the Western Conference. I think if you add Zion, and it's going to take some time for them to get acclimated, but I think if you add him to what they're doing right now, I mean, I think this team has a chance to be one of the serious contenders in the Western Conference. And you look at the standings, I mean, I think those top 4 teams, you look at Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, and Phoenix. I mean, I think those teams.
Well, top 3 for sure are locked in.
Yeah, they're pretty much locked in. And I think those teams are kind of beatable. I mean, I don't know if, you know, it's not.
There's no team out there that scares you. I think the 2 seed scares you more than the 1 seed because you match up pretty well with Denver. And I'm no disrespect because I like the way they play. But when you look at the Grizzlies full speed, I think that's the team that might have a little advantage. But it's like the NCAA tournament. You had some teams that were better, but any of these 8 to 10 that get in can probably win.
Right. I think if you get the 6th seed, though, I think that's probably the best spot just because you matched up with Sacramento, a team that hadn't really.
Well, no, it'd be Phoenix, right? Because Sacramento, I think, is because I think they're 2 games. Sacramento's 3rd. Yeah, 6 will play 3. 6 will play 3. My bad, you're right.
Yeah, so I'm saying if you're in that
that's
spot,
the one you
I think
feel
that's
good.
the really spot.
You feel good about that one, right?
Yeah, I think that's the best spot to be in. But again, if you add Zion to this mix, I think this team is a contender all of a sudden. And obviously, we don't know how well Phoenix is going to do because we haven't really seen KD, you know, with that mix yet. But you know, I think Phoenix could be a really good team.
Because well, I mean, on paper, that would be the best team. Let's be honest. You got obviously Chris Paul, one of the greatest ever played his position. Kevin Durant, one of the greatest in my mind ever played. Certainly one of the best shooting big men I've ever seen. Right. And then you had the other great pieces that they got with Ayton and
Booker.
And Devin Booker, the smoothest 2 guard in the game. That's sick. But the fact is right now I'm looking at you know, some of these teams right here, and you say, well, hey, the 3 seed Sacramento, I mean, listen, the Pelicans match up well with them. And I think when you look at either, I mean, Golden State was the champion last year. And I know they're playing horrible on the road, but now they're getting everything back together. And you seeing, so that's another team that, as a 7 seed, you're like, that could be one of the favorites.
Right. This is the year that those bottom 4 could actually beat the top 4. You know, once you get there. But
and Minnesota's playing well with I mean, obviously Towns is back, right? So that's another one that's dangerous.
And that's the team the Pelicans play at the very end of the season. The season finale is against them, and you know that. I think this season's going to come down to the very last game as far as, you know, some team, not for the Pelicans, but I mean, somebody's going to find out on that last day that they're not in the playoffs probably. So that's just how close the race is.
No doubt. Hopefully it's not the Pelicans fans. Let me say one thing that opened not just the people's eyes here in New Orleans, but the people's eyes nationally was the way they played against the Clippers this past weekend. The Clippers they were a surging team, right? And they just blew them out on their home court. So that's the one that gave, I think, all of us some hope. They're saying this is the team, this is how we're playing. Granted, you're not playing, you know, the best team in the NBA, but you got 2 of the greatest stars, and maybe 3 if you count Westbrook. You and I have had some things going back and forth with Westbrook in the past, but the fact is, Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George, that's sick, and you just blew them out. Now you play them again this week, and I know George got injured in that game, and that's the next Pelicans home game. They got Golden State tonight, and another game on the road.
Denver
Thursday. Yeah. Oh, is that Thursday? Yeah.
Yeah.
So tonight you got day off, and then Denver. Goodness gracious, that's tough. And then you come back with the Clippers at home, who are going to be looking for revenge. That's tough. But what do you think going through that gauntlet? Because every team that they're about to play are playoff caliber teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough stretch. They don't have anybody left. They played Portland. That was the last team that they played with. I think that's probably not going to make the playoffs. Everybody else is in. They have the Knicks coming up, you know, next week. So the stretch is really tough. But again, if they're playing like they're playing now, they've outscored these last 5 opponents by like 23.8 points a game. I mean, they're like jumping on teams from the start. They haven't really trailed in these 5 games. They've been, you know, they've only trailed like 2 minutes for these past 5 games. And, you know, I mean, granted, it's been, well, they beat Houston in this winning streak, and Charlotte, the Spurs, and Portland, which aren't great. But you go back to that the way they played against the Clippers. I mean,
That's
that
the one,
says
right?
a lot on the road. Yeah.
That's when they're getting confidence. Hey, my man Logan Graffia is sitting in the back. He guaranteed the Pelicans would get the over in the wins. And I said, not so fast, my friend. A lot of injuries. This team has shown they are an injured team. And so I don't know what the over and under was, maybe 42 on wins. Regardless, injuries have been a key factor. And I know the NBA is about injuries. You got to deal with them. But when you have a combined, 70 games when your two best players around there, Zion and Brandon Ingram missing, that's going to be a factor. And for them to keep it together, now the question I have is the guys that are injured now, what are the chances of them coming back? You know the big spark plug last year, Jose Alvarado, which everybody, I like to call him El Dorado because it's easier. But El Dorado and your boy Zion, and who else? Do we have a chance to see them again for the playoff run?
I think we have a better chance to see Zion. I think Jose is probably a little further away. Just he was the last time they were at home. He had a boot on the sideline, and with those stress fractures, you have to kind of be a little.
But he was a spark, man. That's a big loss in my opinion.
It is a big loss. I mean, he's a guy that you really want in the playoffs, and hopefully they can get him back. But I just think Zion is probably a little closer to getting back than Jose is, and he'll get reevaluated with like 3 games left in this season, and I don't know if they bring him in or not. But
look at our video, man. That's our guys here shot that video. I like it.
Yeah.
Look at Zion right there. But that would be a truck. I mean, listen, he's one of the top efficiency players in the history of the NBA. There's no mistaking how powerful this guy can be, and this team becomes that much better. But they were magical without him in the playoff run, and if you get him, just call it a bonus and a plus. But moving forward, one last thing. When you look at the NBA playoffs as a whole, there's some good teams in the East, man. Really good teams in the East. You got the Boston, Milwaukee. I mean, Philly is playing great. Who would you say right now today would be the front runners?
I think I just lean towards Milwaukee. I just think they're really good, and they have a lot of depth. They bring Lopez in off the bench, and they're just we know at Giannis and people here, we've seen Drew Holiday over the years, and I think last year
Middleton's one of my favorite players too, by the way. Middleton is such a great pro.
I was about to bring him up. I think if Middleton was there last year, I think they probably beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals.
I'm with you on that. And he missed most of this year too.
Yeah. So
right.
I mean, if I had to pick 2 teams right now, I'd probably pick Milwaukee and probably Phoenix, assuming KD comes back. I mean, I think those are 2.
That'd be a fun one to watch.
It'd be a great one to watch.
Full throttle, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I got to talk about the women. Kim Mulkey. Let's just start with this one right here. Besides, hey, let's face this. There's nobody that dresses better in sports right now. This woman, every time I just tune in just see what she's wearing. We got a bunch of shots of all these coats. This was the latest one. That's when she clinched the Final Four berth. But I've known Kim. We used to scrimmage a lot against each other. She's a year older than me, and she was a baller back then. I mean, listen, she made the most of her talent. She was a starter on a gold medal Olympic team, championship at Louisiana Tech. She was playing Domino's AAU when I got to know her, so she won all that. And then obviously 3-time champion at Baylor as a head coach, and now she's trying to bring one to LSU for a team that had 9 wins in the year before she got here. Now they were 32-2 and 58-8 since she's been here these 2 years. Remarkable.
It's an incredible turnaround. I mean, I think everybody knew when she got hired that she'd do big things here, but I don't know if anybody thought they'd be in the Final Four in year 2.
How about these jackets, though, huh?
Oh, yeah. Do you have
I got people calling me from around the country saying, look at her with the boa.
That's the Ric Flair there.
The Ric Flair? I mean, she's awesome, man.
Yes, I mean, she's just done a tremendous job. Obviously, got some good players here. Angel Reese is
some great players with great stories, too.
Double every
32 out of 34 games.
Yeah,
I mean, that says enough.
Yeah.
Broken LSU record, right?
Yeah, so I mean, this is you look at the women's Final Four. I mean, you got some really good teams there with LSU and South Carolina and Iowa. I mean, that's Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, right, and Angel Reese. That's 3 really good players. And I mean, let's not forget about Virginia Tech. They're a 1 seed, and they're a
1 seed. I mean, that's a fact. LSU's a 3 seed, the lowest seed in there still. Obviously, South Carolina is a juggernaut, but as we see, anybody can be beaten. They're going to be tough. I love Dawn Staley. I remember her when she was a great guard at Virginia, Olympian. I mean, this girl is a great coach. And I love this time of year for women's basketball, particularly because we're involved. LSU had 5 Final Fours in the 2000s. 3 of those with Simone Augustus. But she has brought the magic back. They never gotten past the Final Four, correct? I think they lost all 5 before they got a chance to get to the championship game. But maybe they can turn around this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a good shot. I think the bracket sort of worked out for them. I mean, I'd probably rather be on the side with Virginia Tech than the side with.
Right.
You don't want to be matched up with South Carolina in the semifinals, I mean, you don't want to try to guard Caitlin Clark in the.
Caitlin Clark's nasty.
She's special. I mean, she
40-point triple-double. Are you kidding me? Yeah. This girl can ball. Reminds me a little bit of a smoother, I'd say smoother, because Diana Taurasi did a game when they played Tennessee in Tennessee when she was a freshman, and that's the first girl I looked at and said, oh my goodness. I mean, I know that there's been others, but I said I've never seen him live until this woman could play with any man out there. And this, I think, the same with Caitlin Clark and many of these people that are playing on these teams right now.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, Caitlin's like, I call her must-see TV. I mean, if she's playing, I mean, I'm definitely going to try to tune in because that's just how good she is, and she has that range. But she also just makes her teammates better, and they're going to probably have to. She's going to have to make her teammates better this weekend because I don't think South Carolina's going to let her go off like that. But it'll be interesting to see. She's going to have some. The supporting cast is going to have to play really well, I think.
I love what Dawn Staley said right when she got interviewed after their win. She goes, how about the SEC? Shout out to LSU. Let's get an all-SEC final, she said. Yeah. I love it. Before I let you go, I got to ask one question. The NCAA tournament, it's wacky. You got the 4 seed. It's the highest seed. You got a 9 seed. You got 2 5s. That is remarkable. Give me your thoughts on this tournament so far.
It's been a crazy tournament. We all like the March Madness, but it usually wears off after the first 2 weekends. The upsets usually can sort of die down. You get the blue bloods. I mean, you saw the blue bloods here in New Orleans last year, but this is an incredible field of 4. Nobody expected these teams to get here. I think I'd pick UConn as the favorite just because they've just sort of rolled through this tournament.
But every time we say that, everybody's talking about Texas, and I was like, well, they got to get through Florida Atlantic, and that's going to be tough. Yeah. Who's Florida Atlantic, the team that beat Texas?
No, Miami
beat Texas. Florida Atlantic was another one that a lot of people thought would lose. But I did 16 NCAA tournaments with Tim Brando, and I'm going to say this. I've never seen anything wackier, and I've been part of big wins when, the Butler, who wasn't the Butler now, hit a big shot to win against a 2 seed, and Creighton, when Kyle Korver hit a big shot when they beat a 13 seed. I've seen some crazy stuff, but I've never seen this kind of parity in basketball. And Rod, I love you, man. I appreciate you. I know people in the media biz will remember the poignant, Facebook thing you put out there with a tribute to your ex-wife and the love y'all still had. And I just want to say we've been praying for you, and I love you, man.
All right, thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you here. We give gifts. You know that, right? I know. Do you still have the Taz shirts we gave back in the day? There you go, another one. And then we got you a nice $50 gift certificate to Shays Delachaize. You can use that at Delachaize or Shays Delachaize. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.
Be good. Thank you. Hey, check him out. He's a columnist for The Advocate, Times-Picayune. He does a great job, and we're lucky to have him in New Orleans. Hey, we're coming up next. We're going to flip it to baseball a little bit. One of the more colorful characters you'll ever meet, one of my favorite guys, Kevin Mmahat, and you try to spell that and you're going to win an award. I promise you. It's got a bunch of consonants in the beginning. But his son is also a quarterback at Tulane, a true freshman this past year. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about his cup of coffee in the major leagues with the Yankees. And that's not something that many New Orleanians can say as far as going to that next level. But he's next right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, please excuse me. I read an article that said Kevin Mmahat, and they pronounce it just like that. This article is in New York when he was with the Yankees, but the fact is here, it's Mmahat. Maybe I had an aversion because it rhymes with Bama. So that's why. But it's Kevin Mmahat. And his son, Garrett, is with the Tulane football team right now. But I've been talking to this man for about a year or so.
Yep.
Welcome. Your son was a great. I know when I first started talking to you. WWL, I was working there. It had been about a year ago, and your son had committed to Tulane or signed with them, and we had him on, I believe, that night. I think it was signing day night.
It was, because I remember we took him out. He wanted to go to a restaurant on Metairie Road.
Right.
And you were calling, and I'm like, okay, Gary, you got to go outside right now because they want to interview you right now. Yeah. And I remember he's like, but they got a train pass. And I said, they'll figure it out.
Funny. We figured it out. But it was a great moment as a dad. I know you played at Tulane yourself, and he was a great player. And let me stress, great player at Brother Martin for the Crusaders.
Right.
And you were a Romo/Grace King guy. Your son goes to Brother Martin, but they had such a great program, Mark Bonice. But what was the pride like as a dad to get to watch the signature and he's going to your alma mater?
You know, the recruiting isn't all that it's worked up to be, especially now after COVID and whatnot.
Yeah.
Back in the day, coaches would come to Brother Martin. We had, Garrett and I went on a 2-summer tour between Texas, all over, looking at schools. And it came down between Tulane and South Alabama.
Great program there, too, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're playing them the first game this year.
Yep.
They got a bunch of great coaches over there. But we were on the drive home from Mobile, and I just asked Garrett, I was like, it's up to you, son. And he said, Dad, he goes, I really love South Alabama and their coaching staff.
Yeah, that's the day.
That was the day.
Yeah.
Brings you to Mmahat.
Yeah. That's a good moment, man.
Oh, man, it's a great moment because.
And Gina, I mean, you guys, you're so active as parents. I love it.
Well, you know, that's just the way that we are. I was adopted.
Yeah.
Okay, and the parents that raised me, they're my parents. My father's deceased. But the only thing in this world that I know is mine are my 3 kids.
Wow.
And there's nothing that's going to prevent me from spending time. And now we have a grandbaby. It's just, I love that. It's incredible.
And I can't wait for that day. I always have said this because my kids are like in their early mid 20s.
Right.
And it's the most important job we have as human beings. I mean, I've taken that to heart. I mean, and I love seeing that because you can tell right away. Not even before you just said it. I knew it just from the pictures. I know it from I'm calling you sometimes. You're like, hey, I'm driving out to Lake Charles and Lafayette to go to a playoff game. I'm like, this guy gets out there, and you still go to the Brother Martin games even though he's gone.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I can't. What else am I do, right? All right. That's been my whole life.
All right, I got to talk because I know you didn't have a long major league career. I know you were a great minor league pitcher. I know you played at places like Columbus and Albany and Fort Lauderdale. That's off the top of my head, probably a few others. But when you get a call to go to the New York Yankees, I mean, we're not talking about the Los Angeles Clippers back when they were San Diego in basketball. We're not talking about these lower teams. You went to the biggest franchise, arguably in all of sports. I mean, can I argue this? Yes?
Yeah.
I mean, in all of sports, certainly the United States.
You got the Yankees or the Cowboys, right?
And you got, on September 9th in Fenway Park, was that your first outing?
That was my first big league start. My first outing was in Oakland against the Bash Brothers.
But think was that September 9th?
That was the end of August, I think.
Okay, end of August.
Yeah.
Okay, so my point is you got there and you pitched in Fenway, you pitched in Yankee Stadium, and you're a kid from New Orleans that really didn't even know he was going to play baseball. I mean, you're a lefty, that helps. You threw with obviously some velocity as well. But talk about being a kid from New Orleans that ends up in Yankee Stadium. How does that work? And wait, let me start for you. These are some of the guys. Can you name some of these real quick?
Oh, God, yeah. Hensley and I still stay in touch.
Hensley Mullins.
He's coaching now the Rockies. Kerplunk down there, that guy was a character.
Eric Plunk.
Rags underneath me. That's not Joe Sherman's dad, Rags.
No.
That's Dave Righetti.
But we got
Clay Parker right next to me. He's LSU kid.
I was in Yankee
and then we
Stadium.
had Pascual Perez down there. He and I spent a lot of time together. Unfortunately, because we were on the disabled list so much, I got to know him. He was a character down in Tampa for rehab.
For rehab.
Well, shoulder rehab.
Right. My first game in Yankee. My brother lived up in New York for 35 years. My first game in Yankee Stadium was his no-hitter. That was in '83. My second game in Yankee Stadium was not a great Yankee moment. That's Pascual Perez.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one I know from Atlanta. I'll talk about that in a second. But my second one was when Tom Seaver threw a no-hitter. 300 victory for the White Sox against the Yankees. So you're talking about Righetti was a special player, and the reason I brought those up, Pascual was in there as well. And I'm going to go there because I don't have a lot of time to talk about him, but there's Righetti right there.
Yeah.
And if they keep throwing these pictures, I'll show you the no-hitter because I remember it
On
like
the 4th of
celebrating.
July,
it's the
right?
one. It was 4th of July, and that's it right there. He's celebrating it, and that was a big moment. That's 4th of July. I went to see my brother up in New York. That's the first time. But Pascual Perez, and I'm not going to belabor this point. I was in Atlanta. He's still a legend. Obviously, he did a lot of drugs. He got killed violently in Dominican Republic, where he's from. But this guy was like getting lost on the freeway. He didn't make it to his start in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But he was a guy, I'm not saying you played with him, but he was one of the Yankee characters that was there for a little bit.
He was, and like I said, he had an elbow injury, I had a shoulder injury, and we spent a little time and he did teach me a little bit about, what to expect when I get back to New York.
Damn good pitcher though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, he just had a head case.
Yeah.
But he was damn good pitcher. Let's talk about you though. Your career, man. Let me say this. When you go through the minors, because I've talked to some people like a Blake Dean who did it briefly. He knew he wanted to be a coach. And then there's others I've talked to that stayed in it for a long time and may have gotten a little time. Some of them didn't get it. Then you got the Johnny G. Vitellas who, had a little time in the majors. Of course, I grew up with Clark. Me and him were the same contemporaries playing sports, and he had a great career. But when you get in the minors, what is your thought process? Do you think, hey, I'm just going to do this for a little while? Do you even think that you have a chance to be in the majors? Particularly you, who you said didn't do a whole lot previously. Right. You just had a lot of potential.
I say this all the time, is there was nothing that was going to stop me. Once Coach Brockhoff got me to Tulane, And I kind of figured it out late in my career that I did have something special with the left arm.
Yes.
And I actually got drafted in '86, but I decided to stay home and get married. I got drafted by the Phillies. Yeah.
I saw the break in the years, and I'm like, what happened in '87? I thought you might have got hurt.
And then I went back to school, and in '87, the Rangers drafted me, and I went and played a year ball with them in single A down in Port Charlotte.
Yeah.
And then spring training the next year, I like to have fun. So
Yeah,
spring
sure.
training the
I
next
could see
year, the Rangers called. We were practicing on the field. I'm throwing the football with Nolan Ryan, and they say, Hat, you need to go see, I can't remember the general manager, to his office. And they said you'd been traded to the Yankees.
Oh, my
And as a
gosh.
matter of fact, you're pitching tomorrow against the Red Sox down in Fort Lauderdale. I thought they were just kidding.
They
okay?
weren't. They weren't.
I go to dinner with my roommates. I go on the field the next morning. The next thing you know, they're using words. I mean, cursing at me. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be pitching in 2 hours. And I'm like, wait, you guys are serious?
Oh, we're serious?
Because it was April Fool's Day.
Was it really?
It was April Fool's Day of
that's crazy,
'88. So
Kevin.
I had to pack up my hotel and get everything, get in my car, and drive all the way down south 75 and cut on over Alligator Alley. And by the time I got to the stadium in Fort Lauderdale, there's Buck Showalter. And he's like, glad you can make it. Now, here's your $5,000 fine.
Buck Showalter still in the business.
Oh, yeah.
Well, let me listen. You got to pitch in some great places. I mean, as a kid, Oakland A's were phenomenal. You got to pitch out there in Yankee Stadium, Fenway. I mean, there you go. Is it?
Yeah.
Look, you look like you've already been in the league. You look like Jose Canseco back then, signing autographs. What was this like? Just tell me what it's like. I mean, come on. This is.
I guess at that time, I was so young, I really didn't know what was going on. I just knew that give me an opportunity, I'm gonna make it work, okay? 88, 89, I get the call.
Right.
Okay. The next year is when we had the spring training lockout. I was on the big league roster, me, Dion Hensley, Kevin Moss, a bunch of guys, and Bernie Williams, and then when the spring training lockout came, they took all of us and they put us back in the minor leagues. And we had to wait for the season to start, and sent us all to AAA. And then when the league came back, that's when I'd hurt my shoulder again. And it was great. Yeah, it was a short big league career, but I'm fortunate that the organization that I played for was, like you said, the
You're
best.
in the big leagues. That's all that matters.
Big leagues.
I mean, come on, man.
I mean, I'll never forget the day that I got called up. I was with Dion, and we were roommates. We got called up the same day, and here we are. We don't even know where we're going in the cab. We get dropped off in left field, and this was when Brute, men's cologne, had a commercial. Brute by Fabergé smells like the fresh cut grass at Yankee Stadium. So here's Dion and I walking with our bags, everything from left field in Yankee Stadium.
And you smelled the grass.
And I got on the warning track, and when I tell you, it knocked me to my knees. Because I was crying with emotion, because that was my dad's favorite team.
Oh, my God.
And here I am in left field.
And you smelled the grass.
Oh, man, it was incredible.
Was it just like they said?
Oh, it was incredible. Incredible.
I wish I could go. We're going to have you on again. Let me say this real quick, because I want to talk real quick, and I've got a minute, they're telling me. But we give Task shirts out. Here's the one.
Beautiful. I love this.
And we got,
motivate me to get back in the gym.
$50. I know that ain't nothing to you, but just go to
especially
Shades
with all the kids.
Delashades.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have you sign, but I got a batting helmet, which I'm going to do. We're going to sign that after. I got a batting helmet, which I prefer. This one's full of football players, but I got a batting helmet. We're going to sign that.
Cool.
But hey, and I got like 30 seconds. What was it like following this Tulane football team? Your son's on the team to this. I'm not going to say what your prediction was, but they got to 12-2, and they're phenomenal. And just give me a nutshell.
It was overwhelming, incredible, very emotional, and very satisfying.
Yeah.
And we look forward to 4, maybe 5 more years with Garrett moving up the ladder.
I love this picture, man. That looks like a quarterback right there. He looks like a stud. I hate to cut you short.
Good.
Man, you got personality, my friend.
Come on.
That's Kevin Mmahat.
There we go.
Not Mama. Hey, we're going to see you next week. I got to get out of this because the show's about to end. So I want to thank all those people that are behind the scenes. We'll see you next week. We're going to have some great shows coming up. Brian Kelly from LSU is going to be on the show, as well as some of those great gymnasts right here on Primetime Sports.